Alright, so the goal of this video is just to do a brief introduction to Arcade. So Arcade is an expression language that's used within the ArcGIS or Esri ecosystem for generating custom content for things like pop-ups and labels. So it's a lot of developing text-based content. And there's more you can do with it than that, but that's the main thing that we're going to focus on. Okay, so just a couple notes just about the language. So again, it's an expression language. It's considered lightweight, secure, and portable. It works across Esri's software tools and apps, including ArcGIS Pro, the ArcGIS Maps SDK for JavaScript, and the ArcGIS Online. It can be used in several different environments, including to calculate fields, build labels, and format pop-up content. Here we're mainly going to work inside of pop-up content, just as an example. The language is pretty well documented. You can see the documentation here. It's again pretty well documented. All the different functions and whatnot, profiles. We'll talk about that. So again, it's if you need extra help, this is probably the best place to go, is to just go in and look at the documentation. This is also a really good text. It's a pretty short book, but it gives a good overview of Arcade. So anyway, there's a link to its Amazon page there if you're looking for a good text on Arcade. Okay, so some general characteristics of Arcade. So it's an expression language. It's designed to basically build expressions, like text-based expressions. It's based on JavaScript, so if you are a JavaScript user, like you use the ArcGIS Maps SDK, then it should look really familiar. You declare variables with the var keyword. There is no let or constant keywords in Arcade like there is in JavaScript. You just use var. Again, similar to JavaScript, you end statements with a semicolon. Most of the time it'll work if you don't do that, but that's considered the appropriate way to build syntax. And then comments, again, are the same as they are with JavaScript. For a single line, you have 2 forward slashes, and then / asterisk / for multi-line. These are just some notes on variable names. Again, it's very similar to JavaScript, so you can start a variable name with a Latin letter, an underscore, or the $sign. You can't start a variable with a number. However, you can include numbers in a variable name. It just can't be the first character. You also can't use reserved words. So, for example, you couldn't use var as a variable name, since that's a keyword or has specific meaning in the language. Variables may be reassigned to new values at any point in your expression. So if you make a variable x, you can reassign values to it. Variables declared outside of a function have global scope, meaning they're accessible anywhere in the script. Variables declared inside of a function only have local scope by default, so they're only really available within the function. And unlike JavaScript, there really is no block scope applied in Arcade. Okay, one of the kind of benefits of Arcade, so first off, you're kind of wondering why don't we just use JavaScript? Well, this adds Arcade adds a lot of functionality that's specific to building expressions. And one of the key components of that is that you have different data types that are not available in base JavaScript. You do have the general JavaScript data models like arrays and dictionary, like arrays and objects and stuff. But you have these more geospatial related ones, such as feature sets, feature set collections, geometries, portal instances, so on and so forth. So again, that adds this expression-based functionality that we want if we're building expressions. In terms of your arithmetic operators, they're effectively the same as they are in JavaScript, so plus, minus, multiplication, asterisk, / is division, percent is modulus, so returns remainder after division, and you can increment with plus and decrement with minus. These are your additional assignment operators. So generally we're going to use equal for assignment, but you can also do plus equal, minus equal, multiply equal, division equals to reassign the result of arithmetic back to the original variable. Okay, so that's just like JavaScript. Here's your comparison operator. So you've got your equal to, not equal to, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. One thing that you may notice here, again, if you're a JavaScript user, is we don't have the triple equals, which is used to assess for both equivalent value and equivalent data type. And then some logicals, so logic or, logic and, logic not. All right, those are pretty self-explanatory. One thing that's kind of a new concept in this environment is the idea of profiles. So profiles are basically these different environments that you can work in, and or that you're using the expression language for, and you're going to have different functionality that's appropriate for different types of environments. So, for example, some functionality that or methods you might use to build labels might not make a lot of sense if you're building a pop-up or doing field calculations or building a visualization or something. So here we're mainly going to look at pop-ups, but note if you want to do other things like work with labeling or building like a renderer, then you may have some different functionality that you can apply this tied to that specific profile. Okay, functions in Arcade look like JavaScript functions, so they're declared with the function. Then you've got your function name, the parameters that it takes, and then what the function does. So nothing new there. Control flow basically works the same. So again, you got your if and else if statements and else. So here's the control flow to test whether a number is equal to 10, less than 10, or by default then greater than 10. So same setup as JavaScript. There are some additional functions. So here's an example of the IIF. So if, I guess. If. I'm not sure how it's said exactly. So this is kind of similar to like a con statement or a conditional statement if you're used to that in raster calculator. So here you're basically doing if this is equal to this, then return this, and if it's not, return this. So the condition, what to return if it's true, and then what to return if it's false. And here we're just returning back x. So let's have a look at that. I believe I have that set up here. All right, so this is small. I don't think there's any way to make it bigger, but it's also written here. So one thing that if you want to access attributes, you're doing that with this syntax. So $feature, that's effectively grabbing the attribute from the current feature, and this is the attribute name. So we're grabbing the subregion attribute or column from the feature, right? And this is the value, which in this case is text. You see and it can be in double or single quotes, and then text that you want to print depending on the condition. All right, so basically it's a conditional statement. So in this case, that's been set up, I believe. So if I go up here to New England and I click on one of these counties and the pop-up, this is the if example, and you can see it's returning New England because this would evaluate to true because it is in New England. If we go to another part of the country, then it's going to evaluate to not New England, right? So that's basically a conditional statement. All right, when statements basically allow you to have multiple conditions. So when something is true, do this. When something else is true, do this. So basically, you've got a series of conditions here. And then the last one here is basically the default option, right? So let's open that up. So this is the when option. So basically when the subregion is equal to E and Sen, or like so east, north, central, then you're going to return this, right? So it just goes through all of your different regions. And then if it's none of those, then it will return other, which I think they're all listed. So you probably shouldn't get any other options. So if we click here, like in West Virginia, this is my when example, so you can see it's printing South Atlantic as opposed to SATL. I guess that's kind of like a switch if you're a JavaScript user. If you're kind of more general GIS, you can think of it as kind of like a reclassify. Okay, so this is decode. So this is similar to when, but you don't have to write the condition each time. So you're basically selecting a field, And then if the value's this, return this. If the value's this, return this, right? And then again, the last option here is the default. So this it basically returns the same result in our case, or in terms of what we did with the when. But the syntax is maybe a little bit more concise, so you don't have to put the condition each time. So again, the syntax here is basically the attribute, the value, the new value, the value, the new value, so on and so forth, and then your default value at the bottom. For loops are basically implemented the same in Arcade as they are in JavaScript. So you basically have your variable, the condition, and whatnot, right? And so you have your 3 arguments. So initiate the variable, the condition that has to see if you want to continue the loop, and what to do at the end of each iteration of the loop, like iterate the variable up or down or something. There's also this for-in, which is used specifically for arrays. So basically it's set up to basically iterate through each element in an array. Okay, so let's look with the last few examples here, we're going to look at formatting text. So this is an example of setting up a temperature readout. So we have some temperature data in this temp mean field, and it's actually in Celsius. So here I've implemented the conversion between from Celsius to Fahrenheit. And then this is special text that is going to insert the degree symbol. If you need to add a special symbol, you can look up what text you'd have to put there to get that symbol. And then lastly, I'm adding F here, right? And there's no spaces, so everything should get ran together. So let's have a look at that. So this is temperature expression. So again, we're doing the temperature conversion. Note all that's wrapped inside of this round, and that's going to round it off to 1 decimal place. And then we're adding the degree symbol and then F for Fahrenheit. So if we click on this, we should see our, let's see here, where's the temperature? Maybe I don't have that loaded in this one. I'm just not seeing it. Oh, let me see, I probably have that turned off. Let's go back to our fields here. Turn that on. So this would be our, where are my expressions at? Not seeing it. Temperature, template literal. Oh, here it is. Sorry, I must have that turned off. So I add that to the pop-up. So now if we run that, we should see that somewhere. There we go. So there's the temperature, degree sign, and F added on and rounded off to 1 decimal place. All right, this is an example for currency. So I'm grabbing this median income field. This text function here is basically specifying that you're going to convert it to text, and I'm setting it up so that it's going to have the 1,000 separator commas. And then since it's currency, I'm adding 0.00, and I'm adding a $ at the beginning. So in short here, we have a text function, we're grabbing an attribute, we're specifying how to format it, and then we're adding some other text, so the $, and then 2 decimal places. I think that was loaded. Here we go. So that's median income. So $, we've got our comma separate, or 1,000 separators, and then the 2 zeros at the end. All right, this is an example of percentage. So again, we're rounding off a value, and then we're rounding off to 1 decimal, and we're adding the percent sign. So that's this percent forest field there. Just as just out of curiosity, let's play with this for a second. So let's go into the expression here, and we want to do our percent. Is that this one? Here we go. So round the percent forest off to 1. Let's not put this in round and see if it still works. So I'm going to get rid of round. So we're just basically going to print the percent there and then add the percent sign to it. Let's see if that works. Percent force. I don't think that updated. Oh, you know what? I think that's a different field. Let me set that up again. So I need to add that field there. Somewhere in here. Temperature, let's see, what did I do with it? Actually not sure where that is. Let me have another look at this expression here. Thought that I named it percent. Let me try this again. I'm just gonna give it a new name so I can see it. And then we'll validate it, and then okay, and make sure it's in the pop-up. Should show up here. Is that it there? No. Sorry, I'm just trying to find it. So many things in here. Oh, there it is. Okay, it's there. All right, cool. So let's have a look at that. So percent forest. Okay, so that did work. Notice it didn't round it off. So one thing that the reason I was trying to show this was so this is a number and this is a string, but you can see it is doing typecasting for you. So it's automatically converting this number into a string so that it can concatenate the percent. Let's go back and just fix that just so we can look at it again. So again, with this one, this was called percent before. I'm just going to turn it back to what it was. And I had this set up in a round function. And we're rounding it off to 1 decimal place. Okay, so if we go back in here now, we got our percent, and it's rounded off to 1 decimal place. Cool. Okay, so that's an example of that. This is just showing some, again, text formatting. So here we're replacing text. So in this attribute, you can see in this data set, every county has the word county on the end. And let's say we wanted to get rid of that. So here I'm using this replace function to basically replace county with an empty string. You can also see here that I have an empty space there, and that's to get rid of that space after the county name. So if we look at this, I think I did that here. This is the replace example, so you can see that prints Grant instead of Grant County. So replace data with an empty string in this case, but you could replace it with something else, like an abbreviation, for example, or take an abbreviation, convert it into the full word. This is just an example of a string concatenation. So that example there, let me see if I can find it, is this one, concatenate. So if we click here, you can see this is it. So Nicholas County is in West Virginia and in the South Atlantic subregion. So we're concatenating some strings with some attributes there. Again, we're adding in some spaces here within the string so the words don't get ran together, so on and so forth. Similar to JavaScript, if you are building out a string, you can also use a template literal. So here's our examples of some template literals, which can also include, some functions and whatnot. So here we're converting this to text and adding the comma separators. So it basically works the same way. Here's the example of the template literal that I set up here. So it's actually this example. So we're grabbing the feature name, comma, and then the state name has a population of, and then we're taking the population attribute and we're adding in the 1,000 separators. So if we go into our example here, we should see that somewhere. Here we go. So Dutchess County, New York has a population, and then printing the population. So anyway, that can be a little bit more concise than using than using this typical string concatenation with the plus signs. All right, and then this example is with control flow. So here we're basically going to return something different depending on the condition. So basically, if the median income is greater than 60,000, we'll say high income. If it's less than or equal to 60,000 but greater than 40,000, we'll say medium income, and then if not, it'll return low income. So if we click on this, that was the control flow example, which is here. So you can see that got reported as high income, low income, so on and so forth. So that's also kind of like doing a grouping or reclassification with control flow. Here you can see an example of like the compound logics where it has to be this and that. Okay, and those are all my examples. So again, if you're interested in learning more about Arcade, I'd highly recommend checking out the documentation. We'll provide this map project if you want to look at any of ours or play with this data set and to try out some other examples.